Hello, and welcome to this series where I'm going to be talking about the progressed ascendant moving into a new sign. And in this one specifically, we're going to be talking about your progressed ascendant moving from Pisces into Aries. So this is a really significant shift because we're moving from the very end of the zodiac into the very beginning of the zodiac. This is actually a progression that I have experienced. Some of you watching might have Pisces as your natal ascendant sign or rising sign. Those terms mean basically the same thing, ascendant and rising sign. And some of you might have Capricorn or Aquarius rising, or, depending on your age, your natal chart might have a different rising sign. But so, for example, I was born with my ascendant in late Aquarius. So when I was a kid, I think around 8 years old, was when I first progressed from an Aquarius ascendant progressing into Pisces ascendant. Now, of course, your natal chart always stands, but the progressions just show how you evolve and change over time. And the progressed ascendant in particular really has a tremendous impact. I have felt notable shifts. When my progressed ascendant first moved into Pisces, it was because I needed to go with the flow more. Life changed and I began to be raised by my aunt and uncle, and I wasn't really allowed to have a selfhood. So in order to cope with that, I had to be more Piscean in my approach to life. And in my mid-20s is when my progressed ascendant moved from Pisces into Aries. And so I know what this is like. And if you're out there and you're wanting to understand your own progression moving into Aries, ascendant moving into Aries, then my experience hopefully can help you. That's why I wanted to start this series, actually, because I have just noticed how profound the progressed ascendant is in terms of, it isn't just that your approach to life shifts. It is that life has shifted and that you must adapt to those changes. I mean, it could be either or, but I think the two work together. Okay, my life is different now. I'm going to have to change the way that I approach life because that's what the ascendant is all about. This is how I'm stepping into the world. This is how I'm meeting life head on. So we have to take into account when you're talking about your ascendant progressing from Pisces into Aries, what have you been like up to this point? Your natal ascendant, which I think I already said this before, mine was Aquarius, yours could be even Capricorn, if, depending on your age when this progression happens. Your natal ascendant, whatever it happens to be, is always going to be your natal ascendant. I'm always going to be an Aquarius rising. You're always going to be whatever your natal rising sign is. But the progression shows how you are evolving and how you have to adapt to life and how you have to approach life differently than you have before. When your progressed ascendant was in Pisces, you were going with the flow. You were adaptable. An example I give for myself is, like if I was in someone's car and they're like, hey, is the temperature okay? I was always fluid and adaptable. Like the temperature is fine, whatever. Or someone would ask me what I would want. I'm like, I'm okay, like whatever is fine. Go with the flow. And sometimes I'll just acknowledge. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I wish someone would just know what I would want so I wouldn't have to say it. That's the Pisces energy. And I had to be that way. And I know I'm talking a lot about Pisces here, but I think it's important to understand, when a progression like this happens, like what's the energy you were in before, so that you can understand how the energy that you're moving into, compares and contrasts. So, I had learned, because of what my childhood was when my ascendant first progressed into Pisces, I was, began being raised by my aunt and uncle, and I really wasn't allowed to assert myself. So I had to figure out, how do I face the world without being able to be assertive, And then in my mid-20s, I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, um, and I just met so many people who had very strong personalities. And, I grew up in the country. It was very rural. People are generally very laid back. And if you've ever been to Knoxville, you may not think that it's like a city, but to me it was. And even compared to other places that I've been that are comparable in size, Knoxville has a very, and I've heard other people say this too, there's like a very rough aspect to Knoxville, Tennessee. Like, I don't know if the people are there just really unhappy or, I told someone once, I think that in Knoxville there's a general lack of serotonin not enough serotonin to go around or whatever, or dopamine or whatever the hell, it's like, but, people are kind of rude and aggressive, just generally speaking. So it's like, your progressed ascendant moving into the sign of Aries means you have to toughen up. Your survival instincts have to kick in. Your ability to have like street smarts basically kick in. It's like, okay, if I'm going to survive this, like I have to learn how to stand up for myself. It was a big shift for me because I was not someone who would really, like initiate conflict or things like that. And I didn't like it. When my progressed ascendant moved into Aries and I saw these changes in myself, I'm like, okay, I know that I'm coping with my life right now and I'm around a lot of people who have strong personalities. I'd started doing activism and, people were just very headstrong. And to even be able to like get your foot in, and like be heard and understood, I had to learn to be very assertive. And I wouldn't back down from conflict. Again, I didn't like it. Remember that Aries is ruled, or, the totem animal for Aries is the ram. Now, a ram will like charge at something and hit it full force with its head like this, right? But does it like the pain that it feels afterwards? No. But Aries is a sign that understands, like, we have to charge at what we want in life. We have to just go after it. Of course, that's what the first house in general is about. But, if you have like Pisces in your first house, for example, your ascendant, you'll be charging at life in a very like subtle way, right? Like there's nothing subtle about Aries. So you will become less subtle when your progressed ascendant moves into Aries. And you'll be very decisive. You'll know what you want and you will know what you like. And it may not happen just abruptly like that. You might have to go through a transition sort of period as you're moving from one sign into the next. This progression for me just happened to coincide with a depression. I'm certainly not saying that is going to be for everyone. But, that depression, I actually got so numb. I think this was like the effects of the very end of Pisces. I didn't know what I liked. And then as I began to move out of the depression, which is when my progressed ascendant was moving into Aries, I started to come out of the depression and like remember what I genuinely liked. Like what are my preferences? So if someone, again, to go back to, like me trying to be amenable to other people. Like if I was in a room and I felt too hot or too cold, I would just be, asserting for my own needs. Like, hey, this is too cold for me. Like I need to feel more comfortable, or this is too hot, or whatever. So yeah. So I think that's the one thing that you're going to notice is that you might have things happen externally in your life that prompt you to need to be more bold and stand up for yourself. The other thing that I really learned that I had never been good at before this was leadership skills. Again, I talked about being involved in activism at this time in my life. I learned how to be a leader and, to stand up in front of a room and feel confident. Aries is a very confident sign. It's, a fire sign. And it's a sign of being very bold. You're not afraid to chart the course. You're not afraid to initiate and lead the way and be a pioneer. You may find yourself wanting to do, to do things that you've never done before, to have firsts, like, or to want to do something that nobody else has ever done, to chart new territory in life. Lots of things changed for me when my progressed ascendant moved into Aries. And some of those things had been things that I'd always wanted to do. Activism, now I've been there, I've done that, and so I'm sort of over it. I have been over it for a while, but at the time it was really exciting to me to get involved in something that I'd always wanted to do, but I'd never been bold enough to do it, or I'd never just found the right people. So I think you can also see doors opening for you that have not been opened for you, and you will have the sort of drive and motivation to pursue those things. So if you have other experiences that you'd like to share or insights that you want to share in the comments, let me know. Hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.